Hey all, today I wanted to talk about communication, particularly in higher education. Some of the challenges that may arise in that setting, some ways to overcome those challenges, and also difficult situations, escalating confrontations that need to be resolved. How do we do that? So, first look at the challenges that we face in higher education in regard to communication. Number one is communication styles. Everybody has a different style of communicating, how they like to do that, and how they like to make decisions. Some are controllers, so they're type A's, they're task-oriented, they like to take charge. Some are collaborators, who are more easygoing, they like to work with others to come to a conclusion. Some are really analytical. They like to work alone, they take longer to make decisions. Managing all those different styles of communication is a challenge. There's different ways to communicate. Some prefer written communication, face-to-face, video conferencing, like similar to what I'm doing now, over the phone, email. So, learning how to communicate in the best way with different people who may prefer different styles. And this leads into another challenge, which is the audience. Everybody's different. Everybody receives and perceives information differently. And obviously people communicate differently. So we have to know who we're talking to and which, and how they will best receive the information we're trying to communicate. And so that's always a challenge to navigate. Number four, as far as specific institutions of higher learning, every school is different. Every school operates under different agendas, policies, ways they communicate. Some schools push communication, some not as much, some over communicate, some don't communicate well enough. So knowing which environment you're working in and how to work through that environment depending on how that culture operates can be a challenge. Also, as far as in the classroom, this is a big one, is instructors, particularly for new students who are coming in from high school or have never been in a collegiate setting before, going from more dependent study to independent study. How do we approach teaching in that transition from high school to college? It's definitely a challenge. So some ways to overcome that. Number one, institutions can offer communication training among staff and also provide a handbook based on that training. This will help prepare staff to communicate the best way possible in varying environments and with varying students. Two, a concept called shared governance, which allows staff, faculty, to play a major role in decision making campus-wide. In particular in communication, ways to communicate among themselves and students is really important. Having a presence on campus and the social aspect of campus and the public. Schools really want to push effective communication. It's really important to promote that on campus and create that culture like we talked about before. And this also ties into community involvement. Obviously, an institution wants a good standing with the community in which they abide. And so knowing how to communicate with the community and keeping them aware of what is going on campus is really important. And so hiring a PR firm or just really focusing heavily on public relations will go a long way. And finally, just technology can be a barrier among students and staff. And so, even specifically just offering an intro class to the technology that will be required to be used during their collegiate career for a student will be really helpful. As far as de-escalating, situations, confrontations, there are a few steps to take. The first step, obviously, if somebody confronts you and may do so aggressively, oftentimes our natural response is to be defensive and to react in the same way they are acting toward you. But to avoid this, because that may only make it worse, number one, very simply call a timeout. Say, you know what, this situation is getting too intense. We are getting nowhere, and we need to step back for a minute. Set a time limit, maybe a half hour, however long you think it'll take to calm down and come back and have a peaceful conversation. Once that's accomplished, Listen. Obviously, they've approached you for a reason. There's a reason they're upset. So take the time and actually listen. Don't just hear, but actively listen to what they're trying to tell you. Number 4, respond. Respond with how you feel. Don't place blame on them. That will only make them more defensive. But just speak from what you feel, you believe, you think about the situation. In that way, they'll receive that better because they don't feel attacked. They just feel like whatever you're saying is coming from your heart and what's on your mind. And last, throughout this whole confrontation, maintain non-threatening body language. Experts say non-verbal communication is the most important because it's what people perceive about you. And so being able to maintain proper posture, eye contact, acknowledge what they're saying throughout the entire conversation will go a long way and may help to resolve whatever issue they may have and you may have, and it won't turn into anything more than it should. Thanks for taking the time to listen. I hope you've learned a few things about how to communicate effectively, certain challenges to overcome, even how to manage difficult situations, confrontations. That's not easy, but there are ways to do it. So have a wonderful day. Thanks.